Hello, and welcome to the fifth episode of Security Leaders, the podcast where we speak to security managers, chief security officers, specialists, and professionals from across the security spectrum. My name is Neil Sutton, editor of Canadian Security Magazine. My guest for this episode is Denis Lachaine, head of security for the Gordie Howe International Bridge project in Windsor, Ontario, and Detroit, Michigan. The Gordie Howe International Bridge is a 2.5-kilometer bridge project currently under construction. When completed, it will be one of the top 5 longest bridges in North America. I spoke to Denis about his security role at the bridge, working with authorities on both sides of the border, and why this project is, in Denis' own words, a marvel in the making. Before my conversation with Denis, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Commissionaires.
There can be an over-reliance on technology as a silver bullet to resolve all the ills. Technology is about a tool. It really comes down to the operators and having those individuals understand the role that they play, not only for client safety and security, but the security and safety of the community as a whole. I'm Don Thompson, Director of Operations for Commissionaires Hamilton. If you'd like to learn more about Commissionaires, please visit commissionaires.ca.
So thank you, Denis, for joining us for this episode of Security Leaders. Can you tell us a bit about your background in the security industry and how you got involved?
Yeah, good morning, Neil. It's great to be here. I started over 30 years ago in the Canadian military, and I joined the military police as a commissioned officer. So early on and throughout my years of service, our mandate was not only the enforcement portion of policing, within the Department of National Defence and Canadian Forces, but a lot of our focus was on providing protection of assets. So a lot of the things that we do in the security industry now, we did, and that organization continues to do that. So spent 22 years with the military police and then retired and moved into consulting and the private security industry. In different capacities, whether it was consulting, working with the University of Ottawa, working with an Ottawa-based consulting firm, supporting private and public sector organizations in different consulting assignments. These range from emergency management to security plans, business continuity. So the majority of all the tenets that we find in the industry. I also served with the United Nations as a civilian in Haiti for almost 2 years as one of their security advisors, and spent time with SNC-Lavalin from their head office in Montreal and their global security team until I joined the Gordie Howe International Bridge project in 2018.
Can you tell us a bit about what your role looks like right now with the Gordie Howe Bridge, and maybe just tell us a bit more about your roles and responsibilities from a security perspective?
It's an interesting question because with the Gordie Howe project, we represent the government as a Crown corporation with the Windsor Detroit Bridge Authority. So my role is to oversee the entire security spectrum of the different components associated with the project. So we focus on ensuring that our private sector partner, which is Bridg North America, complies with the Government of Canada's Industrial Security Manual, which talks about having companies and people cleared to handle sensitive information on the project. So we have the personal security component. We also oversee and ensure there's compliance on emergency management, so business continuity, disaster recovery plans. What we're living right now with a pandemic task force. We're also heavily involved in all of the design of the 4 components of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, namely the Canadian port of entry, the U.S. port of entry, the Michigan Interchange 75 component, and finally the bridge, the superstructure. So all of the security, IT, tolling information components, we review all security systems to make sure that they're compliant with the contract that we have. Our role also involves construction security, so ensuring that measures are in place to ensure that there's proper access control, there's camera surveillance, compliance with the different health and safety regulations, security protocols. So there's a wide range of issues that I oversee, and hence, like I mentioned, we're actually dealing with all of the entire spectrum of security. So it's actually quite challenging at times and rewarding because you're dealing with so many issues with competing priorities. So you have to stay on top of all the issues as they come up. We also have to deal with the US and the Canadian first responders. So we have work groups with them to make sure that if there's any emergencies that occur either during construction or ultimately when the project is commissioned, mainly the bridge opens and the public starts using the bridge and going through the plazas, which are the ports of entries, that there's protocols in place for emergency management with the police, the fire, the EMS, and because all of this spans, as you know, is an international border. So we have to take into account the different laws in Canada, the US, and ensure that their operating procedures are consistent with the protocols of each country. So it's truly a very dynamic and fast-paced project.
Are you dealing with a U.S. counterpart? Is there somebody on the American side that will be your equivalent?
In fact, no. So from the government's representative, I oversee all of project security. The private sector contractor, Bridg North America, has a security lead. We are both based in Canada out of Windsor, Ontario. But part of their organization, they have a U.S. security lead and a Canadian security lead. So I interface with not only the lead officer, but both leads on either side. And they have other staff with them as well. Plus, they've hired private security contractors to provide the guarding, the access control, the mobile patrols, so on and so forth. So I interface with these three main individuals, but I also interface well with the different segments. So they have construction managers and design leaders from the private sector partner, but there's also work being done internally with my own stakeholders, which I consider them all to be my clients, different components within the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. So I'll interface with our communications team, our legal team, our procurement team, and different other representatives internally.
Maybe tell us a bit about some of your extracurricular work. I know you represent chapter at ASIS in Canada. Can you tell us a bit about how you got involved with ASIS?
Yes, interesting question. I've been a member of ASIS International for several years now. Was trying to be active when I served in Ottawa or Montreal. When I did move to the Windsor-Essex region in 2018, I wanted to join the local chapter. So I reached out to ASIS International. They gave me contact information. So I reached out to them and I got involved as the chapter president, first get-go. And I've been working with members from within the region as the chapter executive. So basically ensuring that we provide professional development training opportunities to our members. We keep them informed as to the latest trends, information, training, networking within the security industry, both domestically in Canada, but internationally. So we've actually done quite a bit of work on that front. Attended the Global Security Exchange conference last year in Chicago. And in light of the pandemic right now, this has kind of changed the way we do things because we've had to stop meeting in groups in different locations and use and exploit technology to its maximum, like we're doing today on the podcast, and having to rely on virtual meetings to bring presenters and to provide opportunities for our members to learn, to further develop. And interestingly enough, is from an ASIS Canada perspective, we've actually have got a working relationship with the different chapter leaders across the country. So we try to promote each other's speakers whenever they have a virtual meeting or a subject matter expert that comes in and talks about a specific topic. So we work collectively to promote our different meetings so that we have value for our members that have joined ASIS. And we also partner with CANASA and different other organizations as well to network, but also to promote topics of interest, such as COVID-19. How do we work through this period? What are the industry best practices, and so on and so forth. So it's a dynamic environment right now.
So speaking of the pandemic and COVID-19, can you maybe talk a little bit about how that might have impacted your position with the Bridge?
Certainly. We were monitoring early on the evolution of the pandemic as when it originated in Asia. And we had our first reported case that affected the project. So we basically sent a number of people home as preventive measures and followed the advice of public health officials, both nationally, provincially, and regionally. So there was a period of adaptation, whereas those that weren't deemed quite essential and kind of organize ourselves, we started to, work from home and do remote work. But noticing over time that there was a requirement to come back and provide that inspection oversight and to actually have eyes on the ground and look at the progress being done by our private sector partners. So I came back early on in May. It's certainly been a game changer because you have less contact with people now, whereas pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, it was life as we knew it before. We had meetings in persons, and we were able to go about and talk to people and have free access across the border as part of our role. So we've had to take on a different approach, rely more on technology. And I do consider that our staff that work in the IT, information technology, have been instrumental in providing us the tools that we need to have virtual meetings and so on and so forth. But having come back to work with a limited amount of people means that we wear face masks inside the office, but we maintain social distancing. But what I found is I've been able to go on both sides of the border, still meet people, maintain that 2-meter distance, wear a face mask, avoid physical contact, but still having the need to go out and see and monitor the construction, the progress, and deal with these, the security issues are ongoing. So COVID, no COVID, things happen out there. So we're trying to stay on top of it. But I think we've adapted extremely well this new normal. And certainly there's been a lot of resiliency on everybody's part to comply with, the public health directions, but at the same time, continue to work, deliver on our schedule, and provide our role, the inspection, the oversight, and the compliance from our private sector partner to make sure that they're consistent with meeting the requirements of the contract that we have with them.
Before we started recording, you were telling me a little bit about how the CCTV system might be utilized to help share information or keep people updated on the project. Is that something you can talk about a little bit?
Yes, I can. The Bridge Authority has gone out to tender to different service providers, and what we're in the process of doing, as we've identified a service provider, and the communications team reached out to us for technical assistance. So we took part in that process, and they're going to be installing fixed cameras on both sides of the border with some mobile platforms in order to provide 24-hour coverage of key locations. So the intent is to broadcast, like webcams, what is actually happening on the construction site, and then using that platform over time to do a time-lapse recording so that we can show the public the progress that's being made. There's a number of service providers out there that have done similarly in other grandiose type of projects around the world. So we wanted to explore technology for that purpose, and also have regular drone flights over, whether it's the ports of entries, the Michigan interchange, or even the bridge construction itself, which is going to be, it's a marvel in the making to have such a long bridge through suspended stay cables. So we will be able to broadcast live how the construction is unfolding. And all of this will be available on the Gordie Howe International Bridge website through live feeds.
It sounds like a fascinating project, and I'm looking forward to the day that the bridge opens and we can use it to travel back and forth between US and Canada. But thank you very much for spending some time with us today. We appreciate all your insights, and we certainly wish you the best for the future.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you to my guest, Denis Lachaine, and our podcast sponsor, Commissionaires. You can find more security-related podcasts at CanadianSecurityMag.com. I'm Neil Sutton. Thanks for listening.